No big surprises in Champaign today. Pretty much what Vegas and everyone else expected. Ohio State, not with a dominating win, but a rather comfortable 34-16 win against Illinois to roll their record up to 7-0. And more importantly, of course, retain the Illibuck, which dates back to 1926. The Buckeyes have defeated the Illini 10 straight times, dating back to 2007. This was the first meeting between ranked Ohio State and Illinois teams. Of course, Ohio State usually ranked, Illinois not so much, but the first matchup of ranked teams in this rivalry since 2001. Illinois throwing some wrinkles on defense at Ohio State didn't seem to much matter. Continue to credit Brett Bielema, 15-4 the last two seasons for Illinois coming into this game, and consider that Illinois has been a losing football program going back to the mid-1990s. So still doing a fine job, not blown out by Ohio State. This is still a team that was destroyed a few weeks ago, completely embarrassed in that showdown against Indiana, but they bounced back against USC, winning at the gun. So Illinois is a mid-tier to slightly upper tier, probably in the upper portion of that mid-tier in the Big Ten, but their playoff hopes basically thwarted in this game as the Illini dropped to 5-2. We talked about Illinois changing things up on defense to a certain extent. Ohio State did as well with Lorenzo Styles Jr. out of the lineup. So instead of making that one-for-one swap, they took Jermaine Matthews, moved him into the slot, which was key in this game because Hank Beatty is one of the best wide receivers in the Big Ten. One of the most productive guys, probably the best slot receiver in the conference. So Matthews takes on Beatty. That seemed to work. 7 receptions for only 48 yards for Beatty. Meanwhile, you take Devin Sanchez, the prized true freshman, and he played on the outside, and he played rather well. We saw that on one of the first drives of the game where there was a deflected pass by Matthews. So the pass breakup picked off by Peyton Pierce, and Ohio State was in business there. 4 drives of the game, completely unproductive, no scoring, and they only ran 21 plays for 57 yards. However, there were some moments in the first half that could have made this a much closer football game in which Illinois was just downright unlucky to a certain extent, or the officials turned a blind eye to Davison Igbinosun in particular. So he did have a pass interference against Justin Bowick downfield. That should have been called. He had both hands on his shoulders, had a clenched fist around the jersey. Should have been a pass interference call against Ohio State and Davison Igbinosun, who I've been railing on for the last few seasons. It seems like he's been at Ohio State, of course, the transfer from Ole Miss forever. 16 penalties to lead the nation last year, but only 1 this year. And maybe we know why. He has improved in this category to set himself up for an NFL career, most likely. But again, should have been called for that penalty. Illinois would have kept the football. Ohio State gets it, and Jeremiah Smith again proves that he's not infallible. He is human. He should have come down with a pass along the sideline. It was ruled a catch, but it was reviewed, and Jeremiah Smith did not retain possession of the football. So the Buckeyes had to punt there. And then Illinois gets it back on a 3rd and 7. Cole Rusk, one of the best tight ends in the Big Ten, seemingly made a really good catch in tight coverage against Matthews, but he did not establish himself back in bounds. And I think it was the proper call. You cannot leave the playing field and then immediately leap up and catch a football and drop down with your feet in bounds. With the jump coming from out of bounds, he obviously didn't establish himself. So it looked like Illinois would convert a 3rd down into a 1st down inside the Ohio State 40. They did not. They had to punt there. Meanwhile, they actually didn't end up punting because the Illinois punter, Keelan Crimmins, on a bad snap. So let's understand it was a bad snap, but you got to teach those punters, obviously, you can't go to a knee to catch the football. He did, and that set up Ohio State at the Illinois 38-yard line. They didn't move the ball, but then they kicked a field goal to make it 13-0 at that point. Happy to see that Illinois running back Khalil Valentine did not incur a serious injury when he was rolled up by Ohio State defensive tackle Cade McDonald inside the big 325-pounder, simultaneously trapped Valentine's leg, and it looked like one of those rubbery leg situations that points to serious injury, but he was carried off the field immediately. However, he did get back into the ball game. He was walking around the sideline immediately. So, serious injury averted there, but the Buckeyes get the football on the heads-up play by McDonald at the Illinois 26-yard line, and that really provided the cushion for the Buckeyes because on the traditional screen pass to Bo Jackson, he ripped it down the right sideline and dove into the end zone. Very athletic play as he took off from the 4-yard line, stayed in bounds. And speaking of McDonald, the Ohio State defensive tackles on this day were stout, making all sorts of plays in the backfield, tripping up runners. So not just clogging up lanes, running lanes themselves to provide a space for the DBs, the safeties, the linebackers in particular to clean up the tackles, but making plays themselves. So off the McDonald strip and fumble recovery all in one, Jackson with the touchdown, 20-0 Buckeyes. So Illinois' got a couple minutes left in the first half, and they make a good offensive move. They've got one of the best pocket passers in all of college football. I commented actually on X that we may have been watching three of the top pocket passers in college football with Julian Sayin, Luke Altmyer, and Ty Simpson playing his game against Missouri all at the same time. And Altmyer given the keys to just drive it down the field, pick up the pace, and not allow the Ohio State defense and Matt Patricia to change things up. Get them into one set and then keep the chains moving and pick up the pace and throw the football, get in rhythm, and that's exactly what they did. 11 plays, 69 yards at the close of the first half. However, that Ohio State DNA of a goal line defense that has been stout the last 2 years, just remarkable in preserving these Ohio State leads and keeping opponents out of the end zone, rose up once again, and Illinois was forced to kick the field goal. And once again, Davison Igbinosun should have been called for pass interference in the end zone. However, the Altmyer throw was probably uncatchable. However, Igbinosun basically just drove his helmet into the chest of the wide receiver and just drove him back while the ball was in flight. It was pass interference. However, Altmyer didn't throw the ball up in the air toward the back of the end zone in the pylon or the back corner of the end zone to allow his wide receiver to catch the football. He threw a line drive right in the back of DGB, and the play was not called. And again, Illinois finally gets on the board to make it 20-3. Good day for Altmyer. 30 of 44 for, however, 248 yards. So basically everything underneath. No big damaging plays downfield against the Ohio State defense. So Buckeyes with the 17-point lead at the break. And we saw the stat courtesy Fox Sports. Ohio State now 102-0 when leading by at least 17 points at halftime. Let's add on to this with the win against Illinois. Ohio State is now 101-10 in the Big Ten since 2012. Michigan's lost 33 games in that span. Penn State has lost 41 games. Basically, Ohio State is playing in a different universe than the rest of the Big Ten since Urban Meyer took over. Okay, back to this one. It did get a little uncomfortable at this point. The Memorial Stadium crowd, or whatever they renamed it this season, started to see some life, started to get revved up because Illinois went on a 12-play, 75-yard drive, and they finished it off on a fourth down call inside the 5-yard line with a little nifty handoff and option pitch play to Aiden Laffrey, who earlier got the drive ignited with a 23-yard run. So it was the first Ohio State rushing defensive touchdown given up this season, and Illinois was back in it midway through the third quarter at 20-10. Meanwhile, on the next Ohio State offensive drive, interesting play as it was well designed, well set up, and executed, at least in regards to player positioning when Ohio State ran that reverse to Jeremiah Smith to the left, had two big offensive linemen in front of him. I did not take note of who, but they forgot to pick up Xavier Scott. They ran right by him, And the Illinois defensive back made the play, cuts in between the two offensive linemen who are leading the way. They had a convoy for Jeremiah Smith, dumped Smith on his head, or more notably, it appeared based on his response on the sideline as he was knocked out of the game. They landed on his chest, didn't feel too well. It looked fairly serious initially, but Jeremiah Smith back in the ball game, so just shaking up, everything good. Ohio State did get the ground game going on that drive to lead to a touchdown to take a 27-10 lead. And then it was Matthews and Curry this time teaming up on the strip sack and fumble recovery against Luke Altmaier to get the Buckeyes back in position for another touchdown as Jeremiah Smith caught an easy one as he faked inside, got the leverage on the defender on one-on-one coverage to the right side, headed toward the back of the end zone, caught an easy touchdown inside the back pylon, and 34-10 for the Buckeyes as Jeremiah Smith had an underwhelming 5 catches for 42 yards, but he was not needed. This is a different Ohio State team leaning on defense, trying to get the ground game going. Bo Jackson, 10 carries for 47 yards. The top 3 backs went 28 for 98. Ohio State should do better than that because Illinois has been ripped up on defense this year. Julian Sayin looked more impressive than the stats would show. Cool as a cucumber, his second road start, 19 of 27 for $166. He's always played from in front, so let's keep that in mind. It will be interesting to see the first time that Julian Sayin has to play from behind in the second half as the Buckeyes got out to a 20-0 lead and rode home for the win. 34-16 final. The Buckeyes at 7-0 take on Wisconsin in Camp Randall Stadium. Maybe the worst team in the Big Ten at this point, considering what UCLA has shown the last 2 weeks. And Illinois, again, out of playoff contention, you would think. I understand that they could win their final 5 games to finish at 10-2. And actually, it's an easier ride if they get past Washington in Seattle in 2 weeks. They go to 6-2. They've got an easy schedule down the stretch. So do not completely kill Illinois at this point, but that 63-10 loss to Indiana could prove to be their undoing. So the Illini still with a shot, but it seems a bit unreasonable with a second loss of the season. This one by 3 scores. Your thoughts about the Buckeyes, your thoughts about the Illini in the Big Ten race right here at the Voice of College Football. Keep in mind that we go live after all the games on primetime Saturday night. And then Monday through Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, right here at the Voice of College Football.